The really nice thing about doing my job is that I get to meet lots of lovely people. Don't get me wrong, I meet a few beat holes as well, especially when they're drunk or in a bar. But the nice thing about working on a holiday resort here in the Canary Islands is that most of the time the people I interact with are very nice, and we've normally got at least one thing in common. In fact, sometimes two. Usually, the people that come up to me and speak, we normally have an affinity for the music, the soul music, or northern soul, or reggae, or whatever it may be, and we get to discuss all things music, and that's the first thing we love. The second thing we love, I think, is our mutual love of Tenerife. Now, of course, I'm you probably think lucky enough to live here now, and I guess I would agree with that. But of course, I live here now, um, and have done for the last 11 and a half years plus on a permanent basis. Um, but I still remember how infectious Tenerife can be and how it can really get under your skin and in your bones just because there's something about it. Um, and I don't know if you'll agree. Let me know in the comments. I always kind of feel like nowhere really compares to Tenerife. So it's a strange old thing. When I used to come on family holidays, I've been coming here since I was about 3 years old. Um, Always loved it here. Always used to get off the plane, hit that smell of the air like a oven or a sauna hitting you as you step off the steps of the plane. And I always used to say, ever since I was a little boy, I used to say, "Oh, I'm home." So it's always kind of felt like home. And I know that a lot of you feel the same. I also don't disregard that whenever I've gone anywhere else and I've been to I've been lucky enough to go to some wonderful places in the world, either on leisure, holiday trips or whatever, or working, especially the last couple of years. I've worked all around Europe, but there's no place quite like home, and home is Tenerife. There's no place quite like Tenerife. And what I find myself doing is comparing everything to Tenerife. And that's a bit of a problem. And we're lucky enough to be going away on a family holiday soon. We're going to Salou or Salau, depending on if you want to pronounce it English or Spanish way. And it looks beautiful. I've not been before, but I can't help but think I'm going to be subconsciously even making comparisons to Tenerife. And what I want to talk about today is just that feeling that gets under your skin, for you Tenerife lovers, as a lot of you are. And I was reading an article this morning about when you're not in Tenerife, what is it that you miss? And there's an article here I'm going to reference in just a second. It lists a few popular answers, what people got when they ran a survey, and I'll be interested to see what you think. My overriding memory is leaving this island. It was always like this sense, and I don't know if you're the same. You let me know in the comments. This sense of sort of sadness and dread as you make that journey, be it on the transfers on a coach or in a taxi, a private taxi, or a friend drops you. That journey back to the airport when you're on the motorway, the TF1, and you're looking at the shops at Las Chafiras as you go by, and you see the McDonald's sign, and you think, oh, not far from the airport now. Got the journey ahead of me, got to go home. You go past the mountains, and I know that part of town, that part of the island is not the most beautiful, not the most serene or scenic, but there's something about the barrenness and the mountains and the dry landscape that just I've always loved. And even living here now, I still every day admire the mountains. I see something different every day when I look. I see a different shade, the way the sunlight hits it, different ridges on the mountains. And maybe that's boring to some, but for me, it's just something that I love. And that's what I used to love. And I used to hate that journey back to the airport. I don't know if you're the same. So that always stayed with me. So I've got here in this article a few things that people said. And what I want to ask you today is, what is it that you miss about Tenerife when you're not here? Just I'll throw some at you before we even start on the article. I mean, for some people, it's coming to see entertainers, the entertainment, whether it be me or other people. Some people, that's a big part of their holiday. We'll try not to use the obvious one because I know everybody's going to write the sunshine, the sun. But I always like to think, even if the sun's not shining and you're not so lucky on your holiday, maybe there's a klima, maybe it's overcast, maybe it even, heaven forbid, maybe it rains on your holiday. I know that next, I mean, it's different for me because I have the sun all year and many of you won't. So it's easy for me to say, I get that, right? But I'm not going to be bothered what the weather's like on my holiday because I'm still away. I'm away from it all. I'm away from the bills. I'm away from the school run. I'm away from work. I'm away from stresses. I'm away from letters landing on your doormat, with problems you got to sort out again, the bills and stuff. So I'm just going to be happy to be away and I'm going to be buzzing to be in that vibe. So we're going to discount, for the purpose of this video, we're going to discount the sun. So nobody tell me the weather. Nobody tell me the sunshine, right? But maybe it's the entertainment. Maybe it's the food. Some of the food and fresh food and fish in particular, and some of the meat's great here, and Canarian potatoes and stuff. Maybe it's the coffee. Let us know what you think. But I'll be interested to know. This is really, I should really, in retrospect, have done this live. But I'm hoping a lot of you are going to sort of like and comment and let me know in the comment what it is about Tenerife that gets under your skin and what it is that you miss when you're not here. So I'm just going to reference this article now. The first one that it says is the warmth of the locals. See, I'm in two minds about that. I won't say who, but I remember saying to a friend of mine who lives here before, and I've got to be careful what I say, I don't want to be too controversial. Before we moved here, I said, oh, everybody, they're so friendly over here. And she said, remember, they're friendly to you in the tourist areas because it's business. They will call you my friend and give you a free shot and go out of their way to be lovely to you because ultimately they want your money and they want you to return the next night. And generally people are good people and there's good and bad in everyone, but I would say not necessarily English and not necessarily, how to say this diplomatically, they're not necessarily favourite people of the Canaries, and a lot of that's because of the stereotype we give ourselves and the way some of us act. So if you're trying to sort out paperwork in the town hall, where maybe you don't get that sort of same warmth as you do if you're spending money in a restaurant. So that's the first one. Next one is the views and the sunset and being able to visibly see La Gomera, the next island, being able to see that. I've got here the smell of the air. That is something that resonates with me. I always used to say, it smells like a holiday. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if it's like the sea salt or what it is, but there's something about the smell that always used to make me feel on holiday. There's almost a freshness. There's like less pollution. I feel. I mean, I come from the big smoke. I come from London, so yeah, the smell. Tenerife's definitely got a smell. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. I've got the next one is I've got the feeling. I've actually, before I read this bit, I actually referenced this. The feeling of stepping off the plane into the warm breeze. I love that when that hits you. But I guess the reverse is true and relevant for me now. When I go back to England or if I work away in Germany and it's cold, I actually enjoy it. And I always used to say to my old friend Mikey White that he was crazy because he used to say this to me maybe 15 years ago plus. We used to walk, finishing at Hyde Park in London, walk through Hyde Park after the show, and it would be freezing, absolutely tight. And I'd say, oh, this is awful. And he'd say, oh, I love it. It makes you really feel alive. And I used to look at him like, you're nutty. But I actually get it a bit more now. It's a novelty for us to come over and it's cold, to come over and wrap up. I always think if you're too hot, you can't always cool down. In August here, the aircon doesn't filter sometimes and it stops working. A fan just blows hot air around the room. I realise I'm listing first world problems to you and I'm not going to get any sympathy, but it can be really hot. And Steph, my wife, has to actually spray the kids with water while they're sleeping just to try to keep them cool. Whereas when you're cold, you can put the heating on, you can put a jumper on, a onesie, a hoodie, snuggle up, hot chocolate, sit by an open fire, go to a country pub. So it's funny that we miss the reverse of what you miss. So yeah, I can understand that. It says late night barraquitos with friends. I don't know if that's necessarily one, but I am a lover of a leche, which a lot of you will know, the Canarian coffee. It's condensed milk and then like an espresso type thing, and then some frothy milk in the top. So that's nice. And a barraquito is a play on that with liqueur 44 in it, with the alcohol. Is it 44 or 43? The liqueur in it anyway, with the alcohol, and traditionally a little bit of cinnamon and lemon peel. So if you've not tried that, try that next time you're in the Canaries, and especially Tenerife. But yeah, they've got a few on here. I won't, I don't want to ramble on, but there's a few things here Even the feel of the sea. I think the sea just feels different here than it does at home. You know, I was brought up in London, and our little trips to the seaside would go to Southend on sea. Steph used to go to Clacton on sea. So, I mean, there's things also the iconic Mount Tady. There's obviously your excursions. There's the medieval night. Um, there's of course Scion Park and things like that. I don't know if you enjoy shopping. Again, bars and restaurants. I think a lot of you. I mean, if you're like me, you can tell the size of me. I'm a foodie. You know, I always really enjoy some of the restaurants here and stuff. So there's lots to enjoy about Tenerife, and I'm just really curious. I'll pose the question again so you can let me know. Please, if you're watching this, do let me know. What is it you miss about Tenerife? What is it that gets under your skin? What is it that hooks you back? What is it that nowhere else really seems to compare? Now, I know we did a bit of a negative video a week or so ago about Tenerife changing, about people worrying about the crime and whatever, which is everywhere, and the prices are going up. But there are a lot of people that have been coming here 30 years and so on, a certain amount of time, and will continue to come just because it's got that magic about it. So what is that magic? Let me know in the comments below. I hope everybody's well. Take a look at some of the other videos. I'm trying to be a little bit more active, engaging. I did pose a question, would you live here? And that was a really interesting video about my father who's bought some land up in the hills, up in the mountains. So it's away from the touristy bit. And the part 2 of that's up as well now, where he explains how he's building a self-sufficient house. So absolutely no utility bills, off-grid, growing his own vegetables. So it's, you know, it might be boring to some, might be interesting to others. Let me know. And I'm going to try and jump on a bit more often. But a lot of people have said it's been really nice to see me back on again. I'll be honest with you, it's hard to always find the time to do this with a family. And it's a little bit disheartening when you put a bit of time into a vlog or something, edit it, try to get it right, and then no one watches it. And then at the same token, you can press play walking around the street and just say, this is this, this is that, which I've done before. And then you get thousands. So I do appreciate your support. I do appreciate if you like and subscribe. But the biggest thing today is comment below. I want to know what your experience is in Tenerife, what you miss and what you look forward to, and what keeps dragging you. Just every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. There we go, a little bit of De Niro for you. Here, listen, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Interact with me, like, subscribe, and till next time, happy holidays. I'll see you all soon.